Hello, my wonderful people. I'm sorry for being gone for so long. University got very hectic, so I needed to take some time off for, studying and all this stuff. So now that I'm finally done with university for the year, I'll be uploading more. So it's good to see you. Today, we're going to be watching a lovely video by Cut. And the video is, so what exactly are white people superior at? Hmm, interesting topic. So, as people, we have expectations of how the video should go, like, how videos should, be, right? This is what my expectation of the video was when I first thought, okay, what is going to be in this video?
What exactly are white people superior at?
White people are not superior with anything.
And you'd think, oh, yeah, that would be it, right? Nothing. Because realistically, no race is better than any other race. All right, that's realistic. Okay, no race is better than any other race. If you think that a race is better than another race, then you are a bad person. It is simple as that. All right. But this is what we got in this video. Seriously.
White people are great at having fun. That's a function of white supremacy.
So apparently, having fun is associated with white supremacy. That is the stupidest thing that I've heard today. That does not make sense whatsoever. Now, he goes into a bit more detail, and he basically says that black people have more stresses than white people. Now, when I think of that, what comes to mind, in my personal opinion, would be perhaps profiling. Sadly, in our society, we have a lot of crime that is committed by black people. But we also have a lot of crime that's committed by white people. But because we have at least in Australia, we have quite a lot of crime that's committed by black people. And as a result of that, they are profiled more often, which is a sad thing, but it's a real thing. Now, this is what I think about that. I wouldn't say that it's more stressful because realistically, majority of the time, I'm not saying racism doesn't exist because it does, but realistically, if you comply with whatever is being done, okay, if you just comply with what the police say if you're being profiled, all right, 99% of the time, you're not going to have an issue. It's not really an extra stress. Now, there is that 1% of the time, perhaps the police will be racist. All right, that 1%, the extreme minority. But, I wouldn't say that it's really a stress on black people. I would argue that actually, realistically, it is a stress that everyone has to deal with, and that if people in general are compliant, majority of the time, there is not going to be issues. The police are not a racist force out there targeting a race of people. That is preposterous. All I will say is that perhaps to a small degree, there might be the very minority of police officers who will be racist and target people for their race. A very, very small minority. And that's the sad thing, because maybe it does exist to a degree, but to say that having fun is white supremacy because white people have less stress, which is what he says in the next part of the clip, is preposterous, ridiculous, and it makes no sense.
White people are very superior at their privilege and utilizing it. We do not have the privilege to do whatever and however we want to.
You know what? I actually don't agree with that. Like, okay, at least in my mind, I can't think of a single thing that a black person can't do that a white person can in Australia. If this is about, I know this isn't about Australia in this video, but I like to relate it back to my own country. I cannot think of a single thing that an Aboriginal man, for example, couldn't do that I could, right? I cannot think of a single thing. I actually believe that, we're fairly equal in ability. The only real thing that is an issue, perhaps, if we're looking at Aboriginal people, for example, Aboriginal people are typically, as a result, I don't know what it's as a result of. I would imagine just, a sad thing that happens perhaps in that community. I don't know why. A lot of Aboriginal people aren't, well off, which is a shame, but it's a fact of the matter in Australia, at least. And as a result, a lot of them, don't really have good prospects, and that's really a thing. They don't have good prospects. But I would say this though about that. In Australia, we have a lot of systems to help Aboriginal people, for example. So, it's easier for a lot of them to have jobs, they lower requirements. Even at university level in Australia, we have actual systems in place that make it easier for Aboriginal students to get into university than any other type of student. There is literally in Australia, like every government form we have in this country literally has, are you Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander? In every single form that I've seen that's government, right? Whether it be a welfare scheme or it be university access, literally all of them across the board have that listed in there. And the reason they do that is because there is systems in place to help Aboriginal people to succeed in Australia. And I feel as though, it's good that they exist, but I would actually argue that, I would argue the necessity of it, at least in 2020, I would argue the necessity of it. Because, okay, even if they do come from poor families, some of them, right? I don't understand how that would necessarily lower, why we would need to lower the requirements of university access. Because realistic, like I went to a bad school, right? I went to a crap school, right? My school was really bad. Like the average ATAR in my school was around 50 something. It was atrocious, right? And I went from there to a pretty good uni. And the fact that I could do that, I don't understand why an Aboriginal person couldn't do the same thing, if not better. It just doesn't make sense to me why people believe that Aboriginals are disadvantaged in Australia in regards to what they can do. I would argue that they can do just as much, if not more, because the requirements are easier. But yeah, if anyone has a differing opinions now, I'd love to hear about it. If you have evidence to show me today that Aboriginal people are disadvantaged for being Aboriginal, please show me. I would love to see it. I think the most important thing about things like this is being able to be proven wrong, because that's when we learn. So I'd be very interested in listening.
They're just creatively thinking of new ways of always staying one step ahead of other people. We get rid of slave catchers, then let's just expand the police force. That stuff to me is wild.
Okay, what I would say to that is pretty simple, all right? As humans, we are designed to improve upon each other, to be better than each other in some way. I think that's what humans do in general. I wouldn't say that we do that racially though. I wouldn't say that white people aim to be better than Asian people, or be better than black people, or be better than any particular race of people. I think it's just on an individual level. I believe that people try to be better than each other and improve. I think that's pretty normal. But what I will also say is that I don't understand this correlation that she's made. It doesn't really make much sense, because from going from people who managed slaves to the police force, that's a pretty big jump, and they're definitely not really correlated, because the people who manage the slaves, their role is to ensure compliance, all right, and to be malicious as possible in ensuring that compliance. That's what a person who owns slaves does. what they're like. I don't know what that role would be called, but someone who manages slaves, right? And this is a horrible thing to do, but that's what they did. And then you go to the police force, which is their role is to protect the community and stop crimes in an area and lock people up who commit crimes and protect the community by any means that they can. There's a vast difference between someone who manages slaves and the police force. That there is absolutely no correlation between the two, other than that they both use force to get compliance at times. Really the only thing you can say. But I would say that intent is the most important thing. Someone who manages slaves, their role is to ensure compliance with what the slave is there to do, which is to be a slave, which is an awful thing, but that's what a slave manager or someone who manages slaves would think, right? Whilst the intent of a police officer would be that everybody is upholding the law, and that the police officer's job would be to ensure that the law is being upheld. Now, the law is a good thing, all right? Being a slave for someone is not a good thing. There is a clear difference. The clear difference being that the police are there to help the community and to ensure everybody's safety. Someone who manages slaves is an awful person whose role it is to force compliance maliciously. There is a vast difference between the two. And it's dangerous to mix them up because there is absolutely no correlation. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you have enjoyed my thoughts on the topic. Please feel free to like, sub, and share. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next one. I'll be uploading more. So yeah, bye.